There's buzz surrounding the Auburn coaching search. Some talk from our Auburn site on On3 that the coaching search is entering a, quote, important 48 hours. I'm bringing on our coaching search expert, Jesse Simonton, to discuss what Auburn's next move will be. Jesse, what is the word on the two most talked about names related to this search, mostly noting Lane Kiffin and Hugh Freeze?
Well, there's not quite the white smoke emanating from the plains yet, but I do think you're kind of seeing some of the signs of where Auburn's search is at least heading in the early stages under new athletics director John Cohen. Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss's head coach, seems to be target number one. I think there's a natural attraction by both sides there. The question is, how long is Auburn willing to wait on Lane Kiffin? Obviously, he has the Egg Bowl coming up on Thanksgiving. There's negotiations in terms of, staffing, salary. We've mentioned here before, he can only get a 4-year max deal under state laws in Mississippi. Auburn would not only be able to pay him as much money or more than Ole Miss, but could also offer him a 7-8 year deal. So right now, I do think there's legitimate interest from Lane Kiffin with Auburn, and obviously Auburn with Lane Kiffin, but he's not the only one. And, the Tigers can't just stick around and wait for one candidate, so they're certainly doing their due diligence with a number of names on the market.
So tell me about Hugh Freeze. I know you're a little skeptical, but his name keeps coming up.
His name keeps coming up because Hugh Freeze, I think, naturally has some allies within some of the Auburn boosters. But right now, it does seem to be that John Cohen does have kind of autonomy with that search. That's what he was promised when he left Mississippi State, his alma mater, to become the athletics director at Auburn. And since he has these ties that, it doesn't take much to Google, even for just a layman, a fan, to kind of see how it would be a really rocky and weird relationship for your new head football coach and new athletics director to have kind of some, past history that I don't think really makes a whole lot of sense. I also don't think Auburn's new president is someone that, is a huge fan of Hugh Freeze. So right now, again, I'm skeptical. Hugh makes a lot of sense for the SEC. His resume is great, but I just don't think the fit's right at Auburn. Losing to Connecticut on Saturday certainly didn't exactly help his chances either.
No. If you're an Auburn fan and you want to look beyond those two names, who should they pay attention to?
It would obviously be super risky, but what Carnell Williams has done in just 2 weeks on the job is it's been remarkable. It really has been. I mean, this is a place that was dysfunctional. This was a place that, had no juice, all bad vibes. And yet in 1 week, he's done what Brian Harsin couldn't do and what Gus Malzahn really couldn't do the last year he was there either, which is bring Auburn together. Jordan Hare looked like they had won a top 5 game on Saturday. That atmosphere was insane. I mean, it was such a cathartic experience for the Auburn fans, for the Auburn players. And, I made the case on On3, there's a column there that John Cohen has a 58-item checklist for what he's looking for in his next head coach. Well, one of those 58 items better be that Carnell Williams needs to stay on staff. The question is, could he actually win the job? The question is, could he actually keep the job? Shane Beamer didn't have play calling experience, no head coaching experience. Same for Sam Pittman. Those are vibes guys. Those are people person guys. And that's what this job's about now with NIL, the transfer portal. It's about how do you connect with the locker room. Again, super risky, super inexperienced. If he beats Alabama, though, I think you literally could see some real, swell.
Right there, just offer him the contract.
You would see some real swell from the Auburn faithful to say, hey, let Carnell be the guy. Do the Ed Orgeron thing. He would not obviously cost a lot of money for Auburn. He'd even said he'd do it for free. That's not being the case. But you could take a lot of that money that you may spend on Lane or some of these other guys and basically buy the best coordinators you could and have, Carnell just be the CEO. So, again, super risky. I don't see it ultimately happening, but I do think it's something that it should at least be discussed, as we enter the last 2 games of the season.
So who would have to say no to get to Carnell?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily who would have to say no. I know, a guy like Dan Lanning, Oregon's head coach, has already come out and kind of rebuffed rumors that he had any interest. The ties there make a lot of sense, too, because he's coached, with Kirby. He was on staff as a support staffer with Saban. He's a guy that wants to get back to the South. I just don't think Phil Knight and Nike and Oregon are going to let Dan Lanning leave for a year. They've lost, Willie Taggart and Cristobal to the South. There's a $14 million buyout there, too, that's complicated. The two other guys that I would say are maybe dark horse candidates, depending on Auburn's interest, depending on maybe what happens with Lane, is a guy like Mark Stoops at Kentucky. Does he really want to take that chance and look for a bigger job, a chance to truly compete for championships? That would be a really attractive hire for Auburn. I think there's some in the administration, the president and some others who like Stoops. And then a guy like Matt Rule, is he ready to kind of get back into the grind? He's proven he can rebuild a program like Baylor. Auburn isn't quite as dysfunctional. So I think those are maybe two dark horse or maybe deeper names down the pool to kind of keep an eye on.
Good. Do you think that this is all wrapped up by Thanksgiving?
I don't personally. I know that, Justin Hawkinson at our Auburn site at On3 has reported that this has been an important last 48 hours on the search. But I think part of that is just kind of some of the negotiations, maybe getting some ducks in a row. Again, if Lane Kiffin truly is candidate one, the Egg Bowl's not until Thanksgiving. So now if he becomes the hire, it wouldn't be a surprise that maybe something happens, that weekend, and then Auburn's kind of out in front of the search. Lane's able to build a staff, and you're kind of sprinting towards that early signing period, and what will also be a wild, wild west when the transfer portal opens up in the first week of December.
All right. Well, the next couple weeks is going to be really important for the Auburn coaching search. Jesse, thanks for checking in with us. Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. And remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.